Welcome to the FinTech Scaling Show. This podcast is sponsored by Scale Up Consulting, helping FinTech startups create a scalable organization to support an ever-increasing demand. When you're ready to grow, reach out to us at richard@scaleupconsulting.co. Now, over to the show with Richard Doherty, founder and host. Hello, FinTech leaders. Super stoked today to have Ant on the show. Ant has a really interesting background, and that's obviously why we invited him onto the show. He's worked in tech since the mid-2000s, and he's also worked in Silicon Valley and also out in Europe, the European startup scene. And right now, he's the VP of engineering at GetSafe. So, and super stoked to have you on the show and interested to find out more about your journey. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. So
awesome. Let's kick off. I mean, I mentioned the Silicon Valley thing, so I know some of my listeners chat about that often to me, and wanted to get a bit of a vibe as to what's going on over there. But maybe we can kick off the show with your journey away from Silicon Valley, actually, and into and back into Europe and back into Germany, and maybe get a bit of an understanding as to when you moved back from the States into Europe. What was something that you found challenging? And I'm going to say challenging both at work, and then also the transition back into the European sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first actually moved back over to Germany, I was still working for a company based over there. So the most challenging thing was basically working off schedule and working at night. Which had its advantages to running errands in the morning and stuff, but I was definitely weird because I was living in Germany but not really able to fully engage with a lot of things. And that was definitely a real challenge. In terms of general culture, it wasn't too much of a shift for me because I'd always kind of been back and forth between the US and Germany. And actually, once I started at GetSafe and was actually properly into the tech scene as well here, it's a fairly easy transition, I have to say. The way GetSafe works isn't too big of a difference from my experience over in the US. I'd say every once in a while, a little bit of German comes out in people, very structured and stuff. But overall, I think things are pretty easy. So.
And you mentioned the culture in Silicon Valley and out in sort of the German tech scene is similar. What do you, just for our listeners, what do you mean by that? Is it fast paced, driven, or is it something else? If you could just sort of dive into that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think fast pace is definitely a huge part of it, right? I think it's the adaptability, though, is really a lot of it. I think if you think of old school companies, enterprises, right? What's critical or difficult for them, right? Is they're slow to do anything, right? And I think especially when you think of Germany and industry things, right? That's a lot of it too, right? Things are slow to change, very rigid, and I think it's what has made Silicon Valley startups, and I think startups in general, just so successful, is their ability to adapt quickly and be able to say, hey, you know what, we tried a business model, it's not working. What do we need to do differently? Or we bet on this product and we're prepared to drop it and start something else or double down on it, right? And it's just, these are decisions that can happen in a matter of hours or days and not, weeks and months and even years. And I think, that's something I've definitely found at GetSafe too, where, we're constantly prepared to adapt as necessary. And also, and oftentimes we made a bet and it's working out well, right? And, we don't have to go have a big, meeting or go ask somebody, please, can we, go double down on this, right? We say, hey, this is working. Let's focus on this. Let's take advantage and let's roll with it.
You mentioned adaptability. You also mentioned decisions. I guess part of being adaptable is making those quick decisions that allow you to, pick up the opportunity, right? So how do you guys, how does it work? I'm just going to, stateside and also in Germany and in GetSafe, very similar, i.e. quick decision, move on, or is there something a bit more of a community feel to things out in Europe?
I think, I mean, I think at GetSafe I've found it's pretty similar, so I wouldn't really
Yeah,
differentiate between the two very much at all. But
yeah,
I think it's about bringing the right people together
yeah,
quickly and not standing on ceremony, right? If you need,
yeah,
if you need a VP in the room and somebody who joined a month ago but has, had a good idea, then that person should be involved in the conversation, right? It doesn't
yeah,
mean the whole meeting has to be only people of the same level or anything. You don't need to stand on formality, right? You get the right
yeah,
people to make the decision. I think that's one of the most important aspects. And I think, flexibility and openness, right? If somebody from another department comes to you and says, hey, we would really like your take on it. You don't say, oh, well, I'll get back to you in 2 months, file it in my inbox somewhere. You say, hey, yeah, sure, great. How can I be collaborative here? How can I help, move us forward? And I think that's really what it's about, getting the right people together quickly and coming together and figuring out what we need to move forward, right?
yeah, and it's breaking down that hierarchical system
Absolutely.
somehow, and
Yeah,
going, yeah, let's come, we're a team, let's start pushing on an idea. It could be a junior's idea, it doesn't really matter, but if
right.
it's good, we go for it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, as you transition and you went through maybe, yeah, you went through the different learnings and getting involved in the tech scene out in Germany. What's one thing that you always pull out your toolbox? Because engineers have tools, right? You guys have lots of tools.
Yes.
but
Yes.
what's the one thing that you always pull out and look back on your days in Silicon Valley and say, yeah, that's a good thing. I can always rely on that tool to get me out of a situation.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the things I'm always a huge fan of are retrospectives,
Yeah,
whether they're formal or informal. I think they're incredibly important. And I think again, it's one of those things that to an extent can differentiate, a startup between an old school company is
yeah,
being able to have an open and honest conversation and say, hey, what did we as a team do wrong? One of the most important things about a good retrospective is that it remained blameless.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's incredibly important. And that's a tool I always reach for. And I always encourage when, something went just totally wrong, right? Which happens. It happens all the time.
yeah,
And it's sometimes small, hopefully not too often big. And you have to say, hey, okay, this happened. Fine, it happened. What do we need to do next time? Right? How do we make sure either we don't get into the situation again, or if we do, that we can handle it better than last time,
mm,
right? And sometimes that's a formal retrospective with different people. Sometimes that's just stopping in a regular meeting and saying, hey, let's take 5 minutes and talk about this thing that happened.
and yeah, I love the word retrospective. And how do you take that philosophy and that outlook and instill that in your team, and also obviously your team that's always growing because you're a startup and you should grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things is just having them regularly, right? So
Yeah,
everyone sees it, both the people in the team and people as people are joining, right?
mm,
And being a model of it, right? And
mm,
being able to also yourself as a leader say, hey, here's the thing I did. Probably, maybe then this time it wasn't the right decision, or, openly asking for
yeah,
feedback, right? Um, and I think that's really important. Um, I also think what's important that I try really hard to do in a retrospective is if there's a project we did and, launched, it all went well, but, maybe something could have gone a little bit better, could have gone out a little faster, or we had some bugs we weren't expecting, right?
yeah,
Is I try to be as much as possible in a retrospective like that and observer and a moderator,
mm,
not the person who comes in the room and says, hey, let me tell you guys all the things you did wrong, right?
yeah,
It's making sure the team is having that conversation, right? The team can for themselves step up and say, hey, what do we think we as a team could have done better? And at the same time, helping making individual members of the team the owners for the improvements or the fixes that are identified.
mm.
And I think that just really instills that in it, right? They see the benefit themselves. They, and like I said, the blameless aspect I mentioned earlier is incredibly important, right? If people walk out of the room and say, well, I just got ragged on for an hour, that's not gonna make anybody want to do this, right? But if people come out and say, hey, that gave me really great energy, we came together, we came up with solutions, always see positive energy that comes out of that.
Yeah, and I hear you there, because yeah, I think you've hit it a couple of times on this. I mean, it's a case of leading, but also giving the ecosystem for your team to rise up as leaders,
Yeah.
see the problem, and then themselves communicate and work together to solve that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
We,
really important.
and were you moderating it and allowing them to fail, allowing them to acknowledge their failure, and also allowing them to correct it in an environment as fast paced as you guys are scaling up now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, every single day we're trying things that definitely we've never done and
Yeah,
that maybe nobody's ever done,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if we assume we're going to get it right the first time, that's just a recipe for disaster, right? So
Yeah,
instead, we want to set ourselves up to experiment and fail, but fail fast and learn
yeah,
from it. And then you know the next thing we do that maybe nobody's tried before, let's limit the variables, right? Let's make sure, hey, the structure that's worked for us before, let's keep that. But the project we're trying is new idea, or
yeah,
a similar project to what we've done before, but the structures we tried in the past didn't work. So let's try a new structure, right? So
yeah.
it's all about that. And, but setting that up and going into it, knowing what everybody, should expect.
Yeah, that makes sense. And um, I just going back to the Silicon Valley sort of transition into Europe. I know obviously you're still working for a tech startup out in the States, but then you moved over to GetSafe. So what was the motivation for that? Why at a certain point did you feel that, yeah, GetSafe is the option? I want to go out there and obviously join their mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, I was already over here, and actually, where I live in Germany is my family's from and has lived for a very long time, several generations. And originally, when I moved from the US, I was like, hey, I'm gonna live in Germany, and I'm just always gonna work remote, right?
Yeah,
Remote's being more of a thing, I'll do it. And kind of through happenstance, through a meetup, I got in touch with the leadership at GetSafe, and last year, then the CTO got in touch with me and said, hey, we're looking for somebody to come lead our engineering team. Would you be interested? At first I said, nah, I'm not. I work for one of those real startups over in the US, right? I'm not gonna, join some dinky little German thing. And that was literally my first reaction. But and he kind of convinced me and said, no,
yeah,
no, come check out what we're doing over here,
yeah,
take a look. And I started to meet the people and get a better sense of the business and how it works. And I was
yeah,
floored. I was really impressed. And like I said, when I ultimately joined, the transition was easy. It was just incredibly easy. But yeah, ultimately, when seeing all of these things, looking at the opportunity that GetSafe has, insurance is just such a huge problem, and it affects every single person, and
yeah,
a lot of the time. We've been having a lot of storms in Germany, and where it's just in a conversation today about how we know real people who are dealing with this and
mm,
having to get in touch with their insurance. And so having an opportunity to work on a big problem like that at a awesome startup in close to where I'm from, I couldn't pass it up. It was just the
yeah.
perfect recipe. And it's been really exciting ever since I joined.
And it sounds like your mindset was shifted. You mentioned a dinky little startup in Europe, in Germany. I mean, and all of a sudden you met a team that had an incredible mission,
Yeah.
great tech, and obviously great leadership. So, yeah, I guess at the front of the show, you're saying, you know, the difference between Silicon Valley and Europe is there's no difference. So
Yeah.
this encounter has obviously shifted your mindset quite dramatically, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's, it's also led me to, I'd always been aware of kind of the German tech scene, even when I lived in the US.
Yeah.
But, the amount, the tech scene and the startup scene is grown
Yeah.
in Germany, but not just Germany, all over Europe, is just truly incredible. And I mean, you're seeing every single day, big fundraising rounds, big exits, big new startup announcements, right? Coming out of Europe and especially out of Germany. It's really exciting to see, and it's really exciting to be a part of.
And you mentioned you got excited around the mission and the impact you could have on the path to sort of creating the tech around GetSafe. I mean, just for our listeners, could you give us a bit of a view as to what that mission is, the GetSafe mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, GetSafe is working on making insurance better for everyone. That's really it, right?
Yeah.
We provide insurance products that normal people have and often are required to have, where they used to go through an old school insurance company, have to find a broker and deal with that, and a lot of paperwork and slow. And if they do have a problem, starts the paperwork process all over again, or you have to report by phone or different things, and wait for an email, or not wait for an email, wait for a letter. And what we're trying to do is make that all really easy and accessible right on your phone, right? You can explore insurance products, you can sign up for insurance. If a life situation changes, right? You get married, you have a kid, you move, you can do everything you need right on your phone. That's the goal. And then also, if something does happen and you have to file an insurance claim, we make that really easy, and we that's already stressful enough. So we try to take as much bureaucracy out of it as possible. And it's a long road. There's still things where we can definitely improve, but that's the goal, and we're working towards it, and we're seeing making big strides, and it's paying off. We're seeing it. Our customers are happy, and the number of happy customers we have is growing. So.
And I guess part of this journey is building the tech, but also building the team around the tech. And
Absolutely.
as a VP, as a leader, senior leader in the business, how are you approaching leading a tech team that is growing, and also obviously the stack that's growing? What's the way that you approach building that team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's honestly, that's the challenge I face every single day, right? That's the hard part of the job. But it's an exciting one. And, a lot of it is, I try to make sure the team is set up and structured for success and autonomy wherever possible, right? As we scale up, right now our tech team as a whole is about 40 people. And that's growing on a weekly basis. And you can't micromanage those people, right? You have to, you hire in smart people, and you want to set them up for success and to be able to push and innovate themselves, right? So a lot of it is setting up the right structures and the right processes to help them with that, and also gathering feedback from the team, and both from the leaders I have on the team under me, but also individuals on the team, understanding what's working for them, what's not working for them, and how can we keep iterating, while we're simultaneously trying to iterate on our product and our business, iterating on our processes and our structure, so that allows everybody in the team to be successful, and that sets us up really well to scale, right? Because then you have a team of people who are they're independently striving towards the overall goal of the company, and you can add more great, energetic, smart people to that, and they'll fit in, and they'll become part of this, and then they'll themselves be striving towards that, right? And giving feedback and updating the process. And that's and it'll as we grow, it'll have to keep evolving and changing, right? That's part of the deal. But that really, I think, sets us up for success.
And can you help me understand maybe some of the two or three processes or structures that you put in place, or that you have put in place, that helps elevate the team to become, sort of more independent and more, dare I say it, productive?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of the big thing is, I did when I joined the team is there was kind of broad engineering team and working in front end and back end specialties,
Yeah.
and working with different parts of the business, but
Mm.
often it wasn't necessarily tied to a strict product goal. It was tied to some business metric, which is related but difficult, right? But really, the effect was a lot of the engineers were kind of spread out. So one of the things I did, and it's a model, I've lived and worked in at basically every company I've been a part of, is set up the engineering team as a whole into squads. Spotify. There's the Spotify model, kind of a similar idea, but there's a model that's been used in many companies. And each of those squads have a product manager attached to them, ideally a designer too, depending on what the nature of it is. And they're all focused on an area of the product, right? And that unit of people can then, better understand what they're trying to actually strive for, right? And then actually the engineers and everybody can not just know, oh, well, I'm working on this very specific technical thing, right? They can actually get a good understanding for the customer problems that they're trying to solve, and themselves see, hey, I've got this technology here, I've got this tool. How can I better and best use this to solve this customer problem we're trying to go after? And that's one of the main things, and then a lot of things kind of fall out of that. We do Scrum, we do 1 week sprints, weekly planning meetings, daily stand-ups. Those are incredibly important. And I think especially in a time when a lot of people are working remote, it's important to make sure there's that check-in point for the whole team to make sure they're aligned and, can talk. That can happen ad hoc, right? But sometimes, people can kind of dive into a problem for 2-3 days, and, having that moment every day where they're checking in and talking to their team is really important and helpful. So.
And the squad that you referred to. I mean, how big is each squad? I mean, I'm thinking of a football team right now. I don't know why.
Yeah,
But
no, not that big. No, generally my goal numbers are between about 3 and 5 or 6 engineers. And there's normally an engineering lead or manager as part of and then also, like I mentioned, a product manager and a designer. And depending on what the setup is, there might be some data people attached to that as well. So that's the setup, right? Because bigger than that, and the people can't work closely together, they can't all know each other, they can't work really collaboratively, right? And that's the goal, is that they're working on a very specific set of problems and moving forward together. And again, that's a unit that's small enough and close enough that oftentimes they become just fairly independent, right? Product manager comes and says, hey, here's this problem we're trying to solve, and engineers know exactly, like, hey, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Nobody has to sit there and tell them, okay, now, here's what you're going to do. They just figured out, they know how to go about it.
And if you got some, just hypothesizing here, just so the audience understands the concepts. If you've got 3 squads or 3 or 4 squads, and those 3 or 4 squads are delivered into one overall solution, how do you then go at a point in time integrate those 3 or 4 parts of the 3 or 4 squads into that main solution? Is it yeah.
Totally fair question. I mean, I think a lot of it is trying to, yes, it's all working towards the one big solution, right? But you try to, as much as possible, isolate a little bit. But a lot of it really is communication, right? I mean, every single day, engineers across the different squads are working in the same code base and solving similar problems, right? Part of it is making sure we're communicating in such a way that people aren't working on the exact same problem, right? Because that's bad. We are very, very active Slack users, right? They're different Slack channels for different types of problems. For each squad has their own, right? So that, as things are coming up, they can communicate with each other and really be on the same page. And then, that's also where I do come in, and every once in a while I have to do a little bit of work. Um, and a lot of it is making sure my squads are staying aligned, and also that, there's good alignment with other parts of the company, with product and other parts of the business. And that we're well aligned there and moving towards the same thing, but not trying to do two things that are almost the same in two different places, right? Because that'll end up leading to problems.
And that's what you mentioned, alignment between different parts of the business. So do you mind telling me how that, maybe walking through an example of how that works? Because there's obviously the engineering, there's product, there's marketing, there's sales.
Yeah.
There's also obviously the big mission that we're going for. So the breaking up of the squads leads into the product, and the communication into the overall plan. I mean, how often do you guys look at that and then communicate across departments to make certain you're aligned on the overall plan and product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do, at kind of a leadership level, we do quarterly planning to make sure we're aligned. We use a system called OKRs. Some results, pretty common at this point. And we do that. And that's get the overall alignment, make sure we're on the same page, and let the teams run with it then, right? And I mentioned independence earlier and autonomy, and one thing that's really important, right, is if somebody from marketing needs something from an engineer, I don't want them to, I mean, they can talk to me and I can tell them where to go, but I'm not going to be the one passing the messages, right? Well, the marketing person should talk directly to the engineer to solve the problem, right? And that's really important. And again, if that marketing person's a VP and it's an individual engineer, or vice versa, right, then that should happen. But it's important to get that direct communication and not stand on a hierarchy. We talked about that earlier.
Agreed. And what are the good things? What are the three good things to make up a good squad, and what are the three things to avoid? What makes up a bad squad? What makes up a good squad?
That's a difficult question. I mean, I'd say I've been fairly lucky, and I never had what I would consider a bad squad. I mean, I think a lot of it is you need a right mix of skills and experience. But I think honestly, one of the most important things you need is a fairly clear set of goals, right? If you're one day working on one thing and then the next day trying to simultaneously do something totally unrelated, it's just a problem, right? You can't learn, you can't grow with that. So focus is definitely a major helper, right? And which isn't always possible, right? Sometimes you have grab bag things you have to work on. But as much as possible, having a sense of focus really, really helps. And like I said, clear direction, because also there, if today you come in and say, well, we're going to focus on, make something easier for the customers. And the next day you come and say, oh, well, I know you guys just spent all of yesterday on that, but today I want you to, I don't know, only be focused on bringing in new customers, right? And then the next day you come and say something else, right? They can't, the group can't learn and grow and together and focus on the problem.
Keep focused. I hear what you're saying. And also, I guess part of building up squads or teams is making certain that you are continuously looking for talent out there. And I'd like to understand, because there's always a conversation with senior leaders in and around finding talent. So I'd love to get your view, your attitude on how you approach scouting for the right talent to come and join you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge, right? I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that tech scene is really hot right now, right? So everyone's looking for engineers. So having a strong recruiting team is really helpful. They know what they're doing, they're focused on the problem, and they know where to approach people and how to approach them well. But one of the big things, that we also try to focus on is kind of employer brand, right? We try as much as possible to be out there, telling people what makes GetSafe awesome, what are the cool things we're doing inside, both culturally, but also technically. We have a technical blog. My team is publishing to on a regular basis. And we've seen a lot of great response from that. In the last few months, a lot of the candidates then that are coming in say, hey, I read what you're up to on the blog and it's really awesome. And I think that's exciting, right? And it helps not just attract people and interest them, but it also means that, once they're really coming to you, they're excited about what you're working on, right? They just have a better sense of it. So not only does it help find people in the first place, but the people you end up with are more excited about the problem.
So that's actually quite an interesting take, and I think you're one of a few that have mentioned this type of approach, whereby you're sort of creating content to get your audience, which is for everyone out there, your audience is your customers, but also potential people that are going to want to work with you or partner with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a technical blog. I mean, this is really, the audience are software engineers out in the world, right? I mean, some of them may be interested in working at GetSafe, but if we can bring a little information of how we solved a problem, a difficult technical challenge that somebody else can make use of, it's good too. So.
And as you guys are, you continue to grow up and scale up over the course of this year, obviously into the next few years. What questions are you asking yourselves in the tech world right now, and what factors are you considering as you build out your tech stack, and also obviously that team that we've spoken about quite a lot today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the most important things we want to be careful of is, the company and the team culture, right? As we're bringing in people, we don't want to bring in people at all costs, right? I mean, they need to be, we have certain technical standards that we want to set, and we want everyone in the team to follow, right? Because we want solid technology that helps us grow, right? And people that can look forward, but also, people who bring, who are fun in the team, who want to, be a part of the team, be collaborative with their teammates. That's really important. A big thing I try to look at too in terms of the team is making sure we have as diverse a team as possible. I think especially in software engineering, that's could be a challenge sometimes, but it's something that's important to me. Trying to keep an eye on as much as possible. And in terms of the technical stack, I think it's something where it's a tricky challenge because we have what we're using today, but we always want to be on the lookout for, can we be doing something better, right? And I think that's one of the things that also differentiates between us and a lot of the more older insurance companies, right? Is some of them they did start with, to their credit, they start with technology early, right? But I mean, there are insurance companies and also banks out there that are running technology that's 40 years old at this point, right? You can't just upgrade that and switch to something new. So one of the things we're always on the lookout for and trying to pay attention to is, are we staying up to date, right? We don't want to just update just to for the sake of updating, right? But are there technologies, are there tools that we can be using that give us advantages and but also keep us relevant, right? Because as we're looking for the best talent, they want to work at places that aren't using ancient technology. They want to work at places where they can learn and they can grow and stay up to date as well.
How do you keep abreast of all the technical sort of the new things coming into the pipe, right? Or the technical upgrades? Is it forums, newsletters? Where do you get your insights and your inroads from?
Yeah, absolutely. I try, and it's also not just me. I try to encourage my team as much as possible to try to kind of stay aware. I think one of the best channels for that kind of information, just to see what's new, what's going on, is Hacker News. It's a great resource, but I try to also keep up with various startup and tech blogs and just see what's coming out and what new technologies emerge. I think one of the biggest trends right now is the SaaSification of everything, right? So a lot of what we're trying to make use of as well is, are there SaaS tools we can be using? Are there new players emerging in the market that we can use to offload something that maybe we used to would have had to build in-house? And we can take advantage of externally, right? We want to be good at our core, what we do, what we provide, the core of our value. But anything outside of that, if we can, quote unquote, outsource that to a SaaS tool, we definitely try to, because it keeps us nimble, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I know we spoke about this off air a couple of weeks ago, sort of the SaaSification side of things. And just for our listeners, could you give us maybe a bit of a case study on an example of what you mean by this? Maybe that's working now at GetSafe, or that it's previously worked for you.
yeah, absolutely. So one thing is, I think everyone at this point is using cloud computing in one form or another. But we run on Heroku, which is actually something that a lot of companies end up switching off of as they get larger. But so far we're very happy with it. Because it allows our engineers to kind of focus on, solving customer problems and not infrastructure problems. And so far, that's a tool that we've continued to be happy with, and we'll probably continue to use it for the near future. We're also simultaneously exploring, what are different kinds of tools or we can be using. Another tool we've been started using recently is Databricks, which is also a very fast-growing, popular tool for data processing and also machine learning systems. And again, that's something where at past companies, partially just because when they started, we had to build out a lot of that infrastructure ourselves. And taking advantage of Databricks allows us to focus on what are the real data problems we're trying to solve, and how does this help the customer, not, well, how do we get this infrastructure up and running and maintained and make sure it's still working at 3 a.m. So
I like it. And listen, as we come towards the end of the show, I always like to ask my guests either, what book or podcast or YouTube channel are you listening to or reading that you think the folk on the show, or the folks listening to the show would benefit as they scale up their companies?
yeah, absolutely. I think I am always kind of trying to take in as much different types of content as possible. I love reading a good management or technical book as well, but I'm often kind of all over in different blogs. But one I've been slowly but surely working my way through is Ben Horowitz's, I think it's The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's a great book I've been working on for a little while, but every time I open it and get a little further, I sort of great insights. And some of them are actual lessons from startups, but some of them are just life lessons that help you kind of think about it. And it also just helps put things into perspective sometimes. So I love it. And I had the opportunity to hear him speak in the past, and super interesting. So
Oh, awesome. That definitely sounds like a good book. So I'd definitely go out and get that. But listen, mate, it's been awesome talking to you today. Some really great insights, definitely about the squad. Love that concept. So might start using that myself, actually. I'll hook up with you offline if I need some more insights on that. But yeah, it's been an awesome show today. Really looking forward to seeing you guys continue on that growth path. And lastly, before we log off, how can listeners get in touch with you and the team at GetSafe if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a great chat today. Always love to talk about these topics. And yeah, of course, if you need help with setting up your own squad, definitely get in touch. But yeah, if you're just interested in learning about GetSafe, hellogetsafe.com, always available there. But people can feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, and that's usually a good way to get in contact with me. And also, GetSafe's LinkedIn, we're always out there posting. And I already mentioned our tech blog. That's the GetSafe tech blog is a great way to kind of be aware of what all the cool things we're building.
Awesome, man. Okay, great. Awesome to have you on the show again, and looking forward to your continued success.
Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye.